1990s, when the only algorithms you had to worry about were vice presidents maybe busting out the Macarena. Couch co-op was arguably at its peak during this decade, and while guys like Hazelight are keeping the spirit alive, today's co-op games largely, generally, really struggle to match those on the Super Nintendo for sheer simple fun. Join me, Jimmy, as we look back on the best SNES co-op games of all time. But first, pop down in the comments and check out the pinned comment, and you'd be a real star. Number 10, Kirby Superstar. Widely considered to be in the top echelon of Kirby games, Kirby Superstar pushed the series forward. Rather than featuring a platformer's usual layout of spreading handfuls of stages across multiple worlds, Superstar instead features a variety of different games altogether. While all of them share the same fundamental beginner-friendly gameplay, each mode does something different from the rest. Take the Great Cave Offensive, for example, which is like a Metroidvania-light, where Kirby explores a cave system in search of treasure. Milky Way Wishes, on the other hand, does away with the normal mechanics of inhaling enemies to copy their abilities, instead making those movesets findable as permanent upgrades. Cool. Throughout Kirby's adventures, he can be accompanied by one of many different helpers, which are essentially enemies turned AI allies. These partners all come with the moves of their respective copy abilities and can be controlled by a second player. That's the co-op bit. Considering the lower barrier to entry for Kirby compared to most other platformers, quite literally because he is very small, this makes it a perfect co-op game for the youngest of players. Sure, it's not the meatiest co-op ever, but this is the next step up from giving a youngster an unplugged controller and is a pretty good introduction to gaming all around. It rocks. Number 9, Pocky and Rocky 2. This Natsume-developed top-down shooter series distinguishes itself by being relentlessly unafraid to be Japanese. The protag Pocky is a Japanese shrine maiden and her partner Rocky is a tanuki, while the game's art direction and enemies all draw heavy inspiration from Japanese mythology. In addition to the basic projectiles, Pocky and Rocky have a few extra abilities up their sleeves here, and each differ between how they play, but there are actually 7 playable characters here, each with their own uses. Player 1 will always be Pocky, but player 2 can pick from robots, giant meaty men, scarecrows, and even a mole man. No, not hands, not him. Each of them have their unique little gimmicks, but player 1 can also possess player 2 to use their abilities and even throw player 2 at enemies. Player 2 even has unlimited lives, so they're like Beric Dondarrion, but a bit more chill. But that said, Pocky Rocky 2's bright, colourful visuals hide a seriously challenging game. Try not to chuck your mate out of the window after the 17th time of him doing it to you here, and your friendship might make it out alive. Number 8, Super Bomberman. Bomberman is a classic Konami franchise with dozens of releases across just as many platforms, if not more. Yet, dozens? More than dozens? Hundreds? Why not? Yet Super Bomberman remains one of the best, and a fantastic co-op experience to introduce you to this massive series, especially considering the second game skipped the co-op, for some reason. Super Bomberman's gameplay is simple, yet demands a healthy level of caution and strategy. Bomberman's job is to navigate mazes, blowing up obstacles and enemies by detonating cross-shaped explosions, and it sounds simple, but it can be fiendishly tricky sometimes too. Super Bomberman can also be played with a second player in normal mode, in which case the 2 players will work together to blast their way through the game's many stages. Unlike the other co-op games featured today, there is friendly fire here. Since your own bombs can hurt you, that means your partner's bombs can also hurt you too, meaning that co-op adds an extra level of strategy and coordination. You just know though that it's going to end up with your partner blowing you up accidentally a lot. If you're sick of your mate doing a great sept of Baylor on you, I really should watch Game of Thrones again, shouldn't I? A competitive battle mode can be played by up to 4 players to let you squash your beef. And the game even came bundled with a multi-tap add-on to facilitate that. Isn't that smashing? Number 7, Super Smash TV. The The Super Nintendo lends itself quite well to co-op shooters and arcade ports, doesn't it? Super Smash TV is a twin-stick shooter framed as a dystopian game show that made its way to the SNES in 1992 and manages to be a very solid conversion indeed. Seeing as the SNES controller doesn't have even one joystick, let alone two for a twin-stick shooter, the controls had to be adapted for home console play here. The D-pad moves your character around, as you'd expect, but all of the face buttons are used to shoot in different directions, emulating the experience of the original on more limited hardware. Super Smash TV is set in a dystopian game show where contestants must fight through an arena. In-game, this means that you'll clear out waves of enemies in a room and then pick which room you want to progress to next. Like the other shooters on the system, you've got power-ups, cash and collectibles to find, and bosses to beat down, and you can do it all with a friend at your side in co-op. And just like all of the other shooters on this list, Super Smash TV is an incredibly challenging and punishing game, so it's a good thing the port holds up well even in the most heated of firefights. Number 6. Goof Troop. When you think of a Disney animated show like Goof Troop, you probably wouldn't think of it being adapted as a casual and multiplayer-friendly dungeon crawler. But this SNES cult classic is exactly that, an action-adventure game that boasts art and gameplay that might remind you of A Link to the Past. Maybe a bit. Maybe a little bit. The game revolves around Goofy and his son Max embarking on a mission to rescue Pete, and to do so they'll need to defeat enemies, solve puzzles and defeat bosses across a variety of environments. Though the pair can't directly hurt enemies, they can make use of the environment to take down their foes. Goofy and Max can also get their hands on a variety of different tools, like a grappling hook to cross gaps or a bell to lure enemies, though they can only hold one item each, or two if you're playing in single player mode. It sounds kind of restrictive and could get annoying, but really, Goof Troop is kind of an easy game, which is, again, kind of a blessing compared to the other games in this episode, but remains a beloved cult classic whose fans swear by it. And until Four Swords and Triforce Heroes happened, this was as close as you could get to a full-fledged co-op Zelda game. But if that wasn't enough to sell you on playing this game, consider this. Goof Troop was developed by Shinji Mikami. Yeah, that Shinji Mikami. Zombies, man. They creep me out. Number 5. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. A game that basically tells you to choke on them, this top-down shooter from LucasArts is not for the faint of heart, even with a pal. Monsters created by mad scientist Dr. Tongue have invaded a suburban neighborhood, and it's up to protagonists Zeke and Julie to save their neighbors and stop the Mad Duck Dare's wicked schemes. Those imminently masticated neighbours are scattered throughout the stages and must be reached before the enemies can touch them. And to vary things up a bit, some stages can transition from day to night, transforming some people into werewolves that can no longer be saved. It's a pretty kooky game, which extends to all the crazy enemies and giant bosses you can blast. As with all other games in this episode, Zombies Ate My Neighbors can be played with a friend from start to finish. How many people actually got to the end of Zatum is a question though, as this one is stupidly, brutally hard and requires a lot of item management to beat the super tough bosses. It looks great and has a great vibe to it even today, but beware, you can play this from sunrise to sunset and still get basically nowhere. Number 4. Sunset Riders. Sunset Riders is not another run and gun title, this time set in the Wild West. Sunset Riders is fundamentally similar to Contra. Pick a character and go to town over the course of several highly punishing stages where one mistake is one life lost. Though Sunset Riders offers difficulty options that influence your starting lives and continues, this game is still tougher than trying to buy Pokemon cards at retail prices in 2025. Guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? The game's American Old West setting picks you as one of multiple bounty hunters, each of which uses a different weapon. As with Contra, power-ups can be found throughout the game to boost your firepower against the hordes of outlaws you'll be fighting. Did I say hordes then? Or hordes? Hordes, I meant, not hordes of outlaws. Sunset Riders can be played all the way through with a friend in 2-player mode on the Super Nintendo, and there's a minor competitive element to it all too. The player that deals the most damage to the outlaw boss at the end of a stage is the one who earns the reward money. Earning enough money nets you extra lives and the right to lord it over your friend for the rest of your friendship. Though copies of the game go for a premium nowadays, Sunset Riders did get a port to recent systems, though do bear in mind it's pretty easy to establish co-op through collaborative online portals? Sorry if that sounds a bit alien to you though. Number 3, Contra 3, The Alien Wars. You can't spell Contra without, these run and gun bangers are simple by nature. Blast your way through stages full of enemies, pick up power-ups for your weapons along the way, and beat down the boss at the end of a stage. Pretty simple, pretty good game stuff. They're also, though, incredibly punishing. One touch by an enemy or bullet is 1 life lost, and you only have a few lives to go around. It also doesn't help that the Western versions of these games tend to be even harder than their Japanese counterparts. But to soften the blow, Contra 3 allows you to fight through the game's 6 stages with a buddy on the second controller. Aside from being able to do all the same things player 1 can do, the addition of a second player makes things a touch more forgiving. If a player runs out of lives in the middle of a stage and the other has some to spare, the defeated player can jump into the action at the cost of one of the survivors' remaining lives. Even so, the Contra games are no walk in the park, and you and your buddy will probably reach the end credits looking like a couple of disaffected Belarusians if you ever get there at all. It is no secret just how tough these games are. Number 2, Secret of Mana. Outside of the Tales games, JRPGs usually aren't known for co-op play, so it's all the cooler that Square's relatively niche Mana series put it in as early as Secret of Mana. This beautiful RPG is set in a fantasy world that was nearly destroyed in the past. In the present day, an empire is attempting to unseal 8 Mana seeds to restore an ancient Mana fortress, with which they plan to conquer the world in that evil conquery worldy way. Standing in their way are 3 heroes, Randy, Prim and Popoi. At its core, Secret of Mana is a simple yet satisfying action RPG. Everyone has distinct roles here. Randy is proficient with weapons but cannot cast magic, Prim is the team healer, and Popoi is the offensive mage. In single player mode, you control one character, while the rest of the party is handled by a customizable AI. But if you have the actual controllers and the super multi-tap add-on, Secret of Mana can be played with up to 3 players, each taking control of 1 member of the party. Once the second and third characters join, players can jump in or out of the game at any time, making Secret of Mana one of the most flexible co-op games on the SNES, and just one of the best games on the console in general. All of this, back in 1993, was pretty groovy. And number 1, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. Even as far back as the early 90s, there was such a thing as licensed games that were actually good. Initially released for arcades, Turtles in Time would find its way to the SNES a year later and immediately became one of the best games on the console. It's even better with a friend. One fine evening, the 4 turtles are minding their own business watching the evening news on TV. The peace doesn't last as supervillain Kang shows up to steal the entire Statue of Liberty, after which Shredder mocks them on live TV. Spurred into action, the turtles leave to pursue their nemesis, only for Shredder to send them back in time. Turtles in Time at its core is a classic beat-em-up where you and potentially another player pick a turtle to fight your way through a variety of stages across different time periods. Each of the brothers play slightly different, so there's plenty of incentive to dip back in. In addition to being a fantastic multiplayer experience, Turtles in Time on SNES is an excellent port that captures the look of the arcade original as well as its crazy attention to detail. While no 4-player multiplayer is a pity, this is the game to play if you and a friend are looking to get into the genre, and the greatest co-op SNES game of all time. And that was the video. Did you enjoy it? Was there any weird childhood SNES co-op games that you remember playing with your friend and you loved but nobody else did? Be sure to let me know down in the comments down below. And while I've still got you here, be sure to check out some of our other SNES content, like the SNES games that push the console to its limit. I'm not sure where the lens is here. I'm just staring like directly. Does it look alright? Is that too much? Anyway, bye. Thanks for coming.